The Russian and French presidents have held a news conference on South Ossetia at the Moscow Kremlin. President Medvedev reaffirmed Russia will continue its peacekeeping mission in the Caucasus region. He also stated that Russia's response to the Georgian assault on Tsimvali was adequate. For more, I'm joined live by our correspondent, Katerina Azarova, who has been following the meeting. Hello to you, Katerina. Tell us what were the highlights of this meeting.
Well, Karen, it's a much-expected news conference after a very long talk that actually took more than originally scheduled between Russian President Dmitry Medvedev and his French counterpart, who traveled to Moscow specifically to talk with Dmitry Medvedev about the conflicts in the South Ossetia region, the conflict between Russia and Georgia, and to present his role, his part as an international mediator in the situation. There are many things that the two leaders talked about, and most of them they did share with the press at their joint news conference afterwards. Mostly, Russia has stated its conditions on which the peace talks and the peace process must begin. The 6 conditions that Russia has insisted on were stressed by the Russian president. I believe we can listen to what those 6 conditions are.
Non-use of force. Second, to cease all hostilities. Third, free access for humanitarian aid. Fourth, the armed forces of Georgia are to be returned to the positions of their permanent dislocation. Fifth, the armed forces of Russia are withdrawn to the positions that they took at the beginning, before the beginning of hostilities. Until international mechanism and machinery is established, Russian peacekeepers are assuming additional security measures. And the 6th one, the beginning of international discussion of the issue of future status of South Ossetia and Abkhazia.
Now, the real question now, of course, is whether Georgia will accept all of those 6 conditions that Russia has put forward. It is being urged to do so by the international community. The French President Nicolas Sarkozy said that accepting those conditions would be a way to avoid the use of force. This is what the French President had to say.
First principle, the commitment not to use force. By the way, we didn't intend to settle everything during our discussion. We wanted to find the means of a short paper allowing to find an agreement.
Now, of course, this is a conflict that has worried not only those involved in it, but those in the international community. All the eyes of the world have been drawn to the conflict zone of South Ossetia. And answering questions from the press, the Russian president reiterated once again that he believes that Russia acted in the only way applicable under the circumstances, that such actions as made by the Georgian authorities, by the Georgian president and the Georgian military have only one way to be dealt with, and that is a way of force, a way that the Russian military did undertake in the conflict zone. Let's listen to what Dmitry Medvedev has to say on the matter.
Crazy people are very particular because when they smell blood, it is impossible to stop them. Therefore, you need to make a surgery to stop this problem.
So some quite harsh words about the necessity of a surgery to remove the problem, but Russia's president reiterated once again that he is convinced that the actions Russia took were necessary, were applicable and justified in defending its national interests and defending its citizens in the conflict zone. French president said that he believed war to be an unnecessary move, but of course it is in Russia's rights to defend its national interests. The French president made various comments on the future for stabilizing the conflict, for talking to the Georgian leadership. He's actually expected to head over to the Georgian capital, Tbilisi, later on today, where he will hold talks with Georgian President Mikhail Saakashvili. Let's listen to the French president's comments on the situation.
We are now in a temporary cessation of hostilities. It can become final if tonight with Bernard Kouchner, the Georgian agreed to that.
So the two presidents did have a very long talk, and the outcome of that does seem to be progressive. Both men agreed on a number of things, and now, of course, the French president will travel to Tbilisi, and the real question now is whether Georgia will accept the conditions put forward by Russia.
Katerina, thank you very much for that. Katerina Azarova there at the Moscow Kremlin. Thank you. French Foreign Minister and head of the European mediation mission, Bernard Kouchner, has seen for himself the conditions of refugees from South Ossetia. He's visited one of the biggest refugee camps in North Ossetia, Alanya, a region that's part of Russia and borders South Ossetia. Distraught people pleaded for help from the French minister.
We were massacred, killed like flies. Nazis. I have a 2-story building. It was destroyed by Grad. I miraculously survived. There is a fascist in Georgia. In the evening, Saakashvili made a TV address saying, "Ossetians, I love you. Sleep well." We thought he had come to his senses finally, but then when we fell to sleep, the firing started. We rushed to the basement, and our house was on fire. The Georgians were using banned weapons. Our house was hit by Grad.
Strong shooting, and it was 12 hours. 12 hours.
Georgians were killing children and old people. I saw with my own eyes an old woman going along with her 2 grandchildren run over by a tank. Saakashvili is the second Saddam Hussein. He has to be shot down. It's the second time there's been genocide of the Ossetian people. Our children are being killed and show no mercy. Innocent people are being killed. Please, help us if you can. Please.
A very sad impression. You know, so was the case with refugees, and in a camp like that, you're feeling very, very, very sad in thinking what they have crossed to come here, and the way they suffered, and they're still suffering. And of course they have lost some of their belonging, yes, but beloved people too. So it's really awful to see all this suffering refugees, and you know that 18 camps are like that. So the emergency is to make peace, to get a ceasefire on both sides, because this is their life, their families, and their children, and they don't understand why they have been bombed in the middle of the night, which I believe was true.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has strongly condemned the action of Georgian peacekeepers during the conflict. Lavrov alleges Georgian peacekeepers fired upon their Russian counterparts. He says they shouldn't be allowed back into the region.
They have discredited the status of peacekeepers. They have committed a crime shooting at their companions with whom they have been serving in a joint peacekeeping force. One can't discuss the possibility of any form of Georgian military presence in South Ossetia.